I teach my students, you got to cross the border, because sometimes you can look in your backyard, but if your backyard's not a great backyard to be buying in, you got to go find someone else's backyard. I hear from so many people that one of their biggest fears on why they don't do this is because they're afraid to fail. And I'm like, look, you're going to fail. It's just going to happen. Just like overshooting my CapEx. And, you know, we have one property that I swear it follows all our underwriting and it's just jinxed. You know, every time we turn around, it's a water leak, it's this, it's a chiller, it's that. There's learning in every one of those little failures.
Welcome to the Kash and Dash Show, episode 326 with Cynthia Trammell. Cynthia, I got to ask. So I caught a couple of your YouTube videos about real estate investing, multifamily in particular. And I did notice that you have a trademark after kind of it seems like almost a slogan for you, which is Mother of Multifamily, TM. Is that right?
It is.
How did that happen? Like what?
Give us, multifamily.
Yeah, give us the story there.
You got to say it with a little attitude, and you got to say it with like, I'm the mother of multifamily.
So what was how did you land at wanting to do that? And like, give us the backstory there. I gotta know this. So
the mother of multifamily actually came from, so I was a single mom of triplet boys. And that's how I got started. And they really were my inspiration for getting into real estate investing. I mean, I knew nothing about real estate. And so they were kind of the ones that, you know, when you're a single mom, and I was a music minister for over 20 years. And there's a lot of great perks working for the Lord, but making money is not really one of them. And
so if I'm hearing you correctly, you needed to pay your grocery bills for 3 boys in the house, and you're like, okay, I need to supplement my income here.
You know how much kids eat, especially boys?
Yes.
It's so,
he does not know how much boys
I've
eat.
heard. I have 2 daughters, but they eat constantly. So snacking all day long.
The boys are home for this summer, and the other night I made hamburgers and fries. I peeled over 10 pounds of potatoes to make French fries. And I made over 10 pounds of hamburger for them. Wow. And they had one friend come in, gone. All of it, gone.
Man. Okay, so when you decided, you're like, you know what, I'm going to trademark this bad boy and create a basically a little tagline for yourself. What is that process? How much does it cost? How do you even do it? If somebody wanted to trademark something.
Well, I'm kind of going through that process, but that's my branding though. I'm going to be out there as the mother of multifamily. So kind of getting all that locked in. I just started my coaching program about a year ago. And so we're still kind of working on that branding and but that's how it all got started, was from those boys. And now I raise up my students. That's why I always tell them, I'm saying, I'm going to hold you accountable, because if I can raise 3 boys, I can kick you in the butt too to get going. I want people to take action.
I want to get into the real estate, but I want to learn more about you. Like, I want to know, where you come from, where your roots are. Texas gal, if I remember right.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your story? Where it all really started, how you got into the ministry business, period. I mean, a lot of times you hear that story. It's, a parent was a minister, and then that kind of leads to it, but not in this case.
Not in this case. So, not in this case. So my parents, we had a farm up in Oklahoma. I was raised actually on a farm, small town. And in the mid 80s, I moved down to Texas. My father got transferred down to Texas. And I ended up going to a school that had more people in my graduating class than the entire town that I was raised in. So it was a bit of a shock, culture shock. And I just got into that, went into music. I loved music and went to college and got my degree. And I was a voice major at University of North Texas. Vocal performance, did that, and ended up, church was always a big part of my life. I loved worship. I loved being involved in church. I started singing in the church when I was 13. And that was my heart. I love that. And so as I had dreams of, I'm going to be a big singer someday, and I want to do this and that. And I just got a job in the church and found I loved that and stayed working in it. And that's how I got started in it. And my parents, very simple, middle-class people, and they went to church too, but I just found a place in the church.
I've done a lot in my church, in my community, and it really was impactful because I used to chaperone a lot of youth trips. And I believe I hit 20 for sure. I don't remember if I exceeded that or not. It's been a while. But I remember on one of my youth trips, we actually did this like candlelight ceremony with all the kids, and we all kind of had to like just reflect. And it was quiet and it was just really thoughtful. It was in the middle of the woods. I believe we were in North Carolina, if I remember right.
Wow.
And it was actually at that moment, I was like, that something told me I had to propose to my wife. So I remember I coming back from that trip, and I was like, I got to propose. It was actually that was the key sign. I attempted 2 times to propose. Both attempts with everything I was going to do failed, and then in the end, I ended up proposing on the 4th of July. So we just had our anniversary yesterday.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah.
What do you mean it failed? She said no.
No, like
I mean that's the only way it could fail. In my opinion.
Like the first time it was going to be during a concert. Like we used to do the signs at a concert. Get people hyped up in the crowd. And I was doing this. I did this one segment every week on our local radio show, and these guys were going to be on stage for an opening for Stone Temple Pilots. And we were gonna go out there, and then on the backside of this, Jessica was going to help me on the backside of the cards, though. Instead of getting the crowd up, it was supposed to say, "Will you marry me?" Oh. Well, he ended up going in a drug rehab, right, and they canceled the tour, so it didn't happen.
So that didn't happen.
Option 2 was we have a huge zoo here at the aquarium. I was trying to get them to come down and go in the aquarium and have them come up with a sign.
With scuba gear?
Yeah, the scuba gear, the cleaning crew. And they're like, we're not going to allow that. But if you want to make like a $5,000+ donation, here I am in my 20. Actually I was 32 and I didn't have that type of extra cash. I'm like, that's not going to happen. So then I was like, it's 4th of July. I got to get this done. So I just bought a really big firework that had 2 fuses, and then we had to both get down on to light it. And then as we're lighting it, I presented the ring. She got all excited. I'm like, okay, now we got to let the firework.
So while you're lighting these things, it's like
right beforehand, yeah.
And then plot twist: the firework malfunctioned and blew up right in her face, and he had to go to the hospital instead. And he proposed there. No,
yeah, that's not what happened. But
okay.
14 years later, we're still together.
That's great.
Well, now, okay, so you, single mom, 3 boys. You obviously weren't making, you weren't living high on the hog, to borrow a term from, Texas, I think. Right. And, yes. But you decided you wanted to get into real estate investing. If my notes are right, is there a multifamily that you bought that was 16 units as your first deal, or do I have that mixed up with maybe another story?
No, it was. Well, I bought a commercial property first. I bought a strip mall. Okay, this is kind of a crazy story how I got into it, because I knew I'd been in worship a long time, and I love being in worship, but it's a 7-day a week. I mean, Ted, if you're working, I was youth director. We were doing 3 worship services on Sunday morning. I was doing 2 on Saturday night.
Getting paid $38,000.
I was making 50.
Oh, wow, that's significant. Yeah.
Big bucks. Yeah. And there were messages I was sending my kids about that you go and you work for someone, and you work and you work and you work, and you work for time with them. And it was 24/7. And I just knew there was something else. I'd gone to a conference, and somebody asked me, they said, "What do you dream about? Like, what's your dream?" And the first thing that came into my mind was just paying the rent, just getting the mortgage paid. That was like, that's my dream. Let's just get the mortgage paid this month, and yay, it's a win. And so it was really, I knew there was something more, and I knew I was meant for something more. I just didn't know what it was, because I did love my job. I did love being in worship, and I did love working in the church, but there was something more. And I knew those kids were looking at me going, "Mom, what are you going to show us?" Because they watch you, right? You are an example to your kids. And that's when my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, he was working at this commercial strip mall. And he came home and said, the owner came in and said, "I need to lock in on my lease because he was going to sell." And I went, something just hit me. I am very faithful. And there's just something that hit me and said, "You need to call that owner. You need to call that guy." And I did. And I knew nothing about real estate, remember, nothing. And so I called him, and I just sort of, "Hey, I hear you're going to sell. Like, what would you be asking for it?" And he told me, and I'm like, "Sure, well, let's talk more." And I ended up, he took a liking to me and said, "I'm going to show you the ropes. I used some of my network from the church, people that were in real estate, and they walked me through it. They got me a meeting with the president of this small bank in the area. And I went in and I knew I was going to have to meet with this bank president. And I didn't know anything. So I went out to Barnes and Noble and bought the book, Commercial Real Estate for Dummies. You remember all those dummy books? Like,
was it
you had to load your dishwasher for dummies. I mean, it was everything for dummies. And so they actually had one. It's a great book. And so I read that book the night before because I didn't know what an NOI was. I didn't know what cap rate was. All I had done was what money are you bringing in? What money's going out? And look, we still have money left over. That's a deal. And I would never buy anything that way nowadays, but that's the way I ended up buying it. And I went in and the bank said, this is a great property. You're going to love it. And 45 days later, I had keys to the building. And how cool was that these people pay their rent and I pay the expenses and there's money left over and they pay me again at the beginning of the month. I was like, this is great. So,
how big was the property? You mentioned it was a strip mall. Was it kind of a smaller strip mall?
It's about 8,000 square feet, not huge.
Okay.
Out west of Fort Worth and in this little kind of small town, but two big major highways went through there. They were building this big racetrack out there, big NASCAR racetrack. I was like, this is in the path of progress, what we say, right? And And so I got into that, decided this is where I wanted to leave my W-2 job. I'm like, I can make this. We could make ends meet. We're going to have to eat a little beans and rice, but we can make ends meet. I went in to my pastor, my friend, and said, it's time. I am ready to go be a real estate investor. This is what I want to do.
On this one transaction, and you owned it for how long?
Maybe like 6 months.
Oh, wow. Yeah. No big bills yet.
I was ready, right? Yeah, I knew this was where I wanted to go. I was like, there was no doubt in my mind. This is what I wanted to do.
You convinced Endless so much. He's already bought the book over here. He's like, you already picked it up. He just bought it.
He's got it up on his phone right now.
He's like, I can do this too.
Wow. Okay. Well, I would imagine that you probably don't coach students on buying their very first property with on a commercial real estate property after reading.
No.
Right? No. Well, but it is, they do say that, stepping into something like that is probably the best education you can get over and above reading, 50 books. So you just said, okay, I'm out. I'm going to do this. You had a little bit of a litmus test with the time that you owned it. So 6 months, sounds like you had some money left over, but what happened next with that? Did it go pretty smooth sailing for a while, or did you have some hiccups?
No, it went with smooth sailing. And, the trickiest part was when I went to my pastor and said, I'm going to leave. He looked me in the eye and he said, you will fail.
What?
He said, you are selfish. I can't believe as a single mom to these boys that you would do this. He goes, you are selfish to even think about quitting this job. And he goes, you're going to fail. You'll be back. And of course, again, not knowing anything about real estate, the fear, it just poured over me because, you start thinking maybe he's right. Maybe I am selfish. Maybe this is like the most stupid thing I could ever do in my life is to quit a stable job that brings me a paycheck every month and health insurance. And you know what I did though? I told him to stick it. I told him to take that job and shove it. And I love it.
Have you guys talked since then?
No.
I mean, oh man. I mean, because you're like, did he say it because he's actually looking out for me, or did he say it for selfish reasons?
I think it was probably because I was such a large part of that church that to leave, it was going to leave a lot of emptiness, right? A lot of vacancy.
Yeah, you were probably a pillar of the church after having been there for a while. It was going to put him in a bind because now he's got to basically cover that with either somebody else or himself, and he lashed out at you by saying you're going to fail. So it seemed like that's a weird take from especially somebody in his position. But
right.
You think if he would have supported you, you'd probably continue to be a member. You've been a giving member, and you probably would have been somebody that would have volunteered.
Right, exactly. I moved on, and that's when I got into multifamily. And I'm like, wow, if I could own this, what if I owned a lot of doors under one roof and all those tenants paid me at the first of the month? This would be really cool, right? So that's when I joined RE Mentor and I got involved with Dave Lindahl.
Okay, so one quick follow-up question before we dig into this part. on the commercial deal that you bought, we didn't really talk about, and if you don't want to share, that's fine, but we didn't really talk about how you put the financing together on it. You went to you got an intro to the banker, the president of the small community bank, which is a great move. But how did you have any money for the down payment? I guess, what did that look like? Did you get seller financing or bring in money?
No, my father had passed away right before this. And so he had left me some money, and it was not necessarily in cash. It was in, stocks and things like that. And my parents were so conservative. And it was basically, you get an education, because they didn't have that education, right? My dad went to college, my mom did not. And it was like, you got to get your education. You go work for someone. You stay working for them to the day you die. You put money away. You put money into 401ks and the savings, and you never spend it. You never rock the boat. Never question. And I did all the opposite of that. And I'd like to think my father sees me now and he'd be like, girl, nailed it, but I think in the moment he'd be like, girl's going crazy again and making crazy decisions.
It is funny, though, how kids can react completely differently depending on their personality to the advice you give them or the things you're showing them. It's like you could have really latched onto that and said, I 100% agree with you and followed that same path. But, some kids are like, you know what? I'm going to pave my own way. I don't want to follow just because everybody else is doing X. I'm going to follow suit. And then you pivot and do Y. But you may have two kids that are raised by the exact same parents that one does and one doesn't. So it's just it's always, we end up being the black sheep typically with the people that end up in real estate investing. They're always the weirdo.
Are you the baby of the family?
I am. Yep.
I'm the baby of the family too.
Yep.
Where my sister, she's so supportive, but it's like, I don't know what you're doing. It's like,
yeah.
So that's how I funded it. That's how I funded it.
I love it. Now, all right, tell us about you found multifamily. It sounded exciting. You like the idea of getting paid on the first of every month. What was your first move with that?
Well, I got the education, started going out. And of course, RE Mentor's wonderful if you want to learn about syndications. And so I was chasing down the 100 doors, I'm looking for my 100 door syndication, my 150. And I stumbled into a 16 unit. In this place, it was 4 quads, yellow, pink. Any guesses on what the other 2 colors were?
Baby blue and avocado green.
Green, yeah. The insides, avocado green, harvest gold sinks and tubs. It was 1975 at its best.
That was the best year for appliances, man. Those things lasted 50 years.
Forever, right?
I can still picture the harvest gold refrigerator that we had during my entire childhood. And that thing ran forever.
60 years. It'll last forever, right?
I have a client right now with an 8 unit, and it's got these massive refrigerator size furnace units. And they are like 1970s, maybe older. They are steel. Yeah, and those things are still running great. And it just has a huge pulley system in them.
They do, but they're like 48% efficient. Now it's like 96 or whatever.
Yeah, but 20-some thousand they want to replace each one. You might as well just keep them.
What's hilarious though is like you go to some of these, they call them classic units. If you go to an apartment complex and it hasn't been touched in 50, 60 years. Yeah, right. But what's funny is I rehabbed a house that had that exact same tile setup where they actually had an avocado green toilet with tile to match on the walls. They had 4 bathrooms in this house in District 66, and it was the pink, the blue, the gold, and the green. And I had a dude dumpster diving in the driveway. We had a roll off dumpster, and we were throwing all the tile and all the stuff in there. And I showed up one day, and he kind of like pops his head up like that, and he's like, hey, and I'm like, hey, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, well, I'm sorry. He goes, I knocked on the door, didn't see anybody or whatever. He goes, but I'd really like to take this tile if you don't mind. And I'm like, sure. So he loaded up all the non-broken versions of that tile, and a lot of people are using those now. Like they're repurposing stuff, doing the mid-century modern vibe.
Coming back around.
Yeah. So, hey.
Were you regretting tearing it out at that point?
No. All right. So, sorry. We've had a couple segues here and talked about us, but back to you here. So, multifamily, you enrolled in a coaching program. You learned how to syndicate. You happened to find a 16 unit. Was that in your backyard, like in the Fort Worth area? No?
It's in Oklahoma.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, but it was in a town where I was born. So
Okay.
at least I was familiar with it. And that's when I just went under contract on it, right? I negotiated a deal. I went under contract. And what do you think all these big syndicators said to me, right?
You're going to fail.
There seems to be an ongoing theme over me in my life. People think I'm going to fail. I just keep fighting, right?
Every time one of those people do that to you, you just need to put their head on a little stick. And
Yeah.
then, and
Voodoo doll.
yeah, and just have them like, hey, remember what this little head told me? And then just put them on the back wall, all the haters.
No greater motivator than people telling you're going to fail, right?
Yeah.
No greater motivator to keep you going, keep you
You're
fighting.
so nice, though. I can't imagine somebody saying that to your face. That is just wild that they would do that. I mean, behind your back, sure, everybody does that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, there's plenty of people behind my back calling me lots of things besides you're a failure. No.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the deal. So
that's
16,
just the tenants that say that, just so you know.
Yeah, right. My tenants love me. No. Yeah, 16 doors. We bought it for $580,000. So we were going to put some CapEx in it. We had to raise about $280,000. You might have well told me I had to raise $2 million because I was like, where am I going to get $280,000? Because I just thought everybody had money like me, I mean, like my mindset about money.
Yep.
And then I was introduced to my partner and he had money, but he didn't have time. And I had just quit my job and told I was going to be a failure. I had lots of time, right? So I was like, let's do this together. So he funded it. And we ended up buying that thing. And it has been a cash cow. We were going to hold it for 5 years, refinanced. We bought it in 2018. We refinanced in less than 24 months, pulled out about $170,000 on it. Rents were under $500 when we bought it. We now rent for $1,000, 2 bedrooms.
Dang.
Yeah, I mean, you can do it with money.
How did you vet your partner and determine that they're the right partner for you, besides the fact that they had money?
That's a great question because, I teach on partnerships a lot because I see a lot of deals go south or get off track because of relationships. Mm-hmm. So we met and I don't know, he's very faithful. He is truly a strong man of God. And we had a great faith-based relationship was started. I think that when you resonate with somebody, we knew we had a lot of similarities in our values and our moral system and our compass, right? Even though from a business standpoint, we're very different. He's big thinker, big, we can do this, or, hey, we never thought about putting like a helicopter pad on this property and we could do rides and that'll make other income. And, he's a big, big thinker, right? I'm GSD, man. I don't want to cuss on your show. Get stuff done.
Be you.
This is like a Marvel movie. You get like 1 or 2 per episode.
And that's it. Yeah. I'm GSD, get stuff done, right? I'm the boots on the ground. I'm like, let's get her done. Stop dreaming. Let's just get the job done. And so we complement each other in that way. So it turned out really great. And we've been partners now for 9 years. And we've done a lot of deals together.
Texas is, I believe, the largest, or if not one of the 2 largest states in the United States here. Oklahoma's not small. How far away is the 16 unit from where you actually live?
5.5 hours.
5.5 hour drive. Okay. So how did you, like, if somebody wants to do this and they're like, yeah, you know what, I've got, but you had, that was your old hometown. So maybe you had some connections, but talk us through that. Like, how do you approach a property that involves rehab? You formed a JV. Part of the deal was you were going to, rehab the units, get rid of the harvest gold and the 4 beautiful colors from the 70s. And then
what made you think we got rid of that? No, I'm kidding.
I don't know. I stand corrected. But like, talk about that maybe. How do you do it from a distance?
You got to have a great property manager. I mean, you do not want to try to manage these yourselves. So we found a great property management company and I just could oversee it from there. And the great thing over the last 5 or 6 years, well, since COVID, one of the things that did come out is this Zooming online. My property managers, I'm like, get me on the phone and let's take a walk. And we Zoom it and we walk the properties together. I teach my students, you got to cross the border because sometimes you can look in your backyard, but if your backyard's not a great backyard to be buying in, you got to go find someone else's backyard. So even though it was 5.5 hours away, I mean, I visited a couple of times a year, but it's finding that property management, having a business plan, and holding them accountable to that business plan.
One more question on that, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
when you hire a property manager, and Ted and I have both worked with several, a lot of our viewers and listeners have, sometimes a vastly different skill set that a property manager or a property management company has. And sometimes it's leasing. They're really good at that. Maybe they're really good at operations, and they can, they've got a good vendor list. They can keep your costs down to a point. But there's some that aren't really very good at managing rehab projects. So if there's a lot of CapEx that needs to be put back into a property, say you got to do a pretty heavy lift and you've got to put 15 to 20 grand into a unit to get it modernized and get, rents basically doubled almost from what you said. Mm-hmm. Like if you're trying to capture market rate rents, do you have any tips or any advice for people that are looking at maybe a property that involves rehab like that? Are there questions or things like that? Or did you just happen to, not get lucky, but did you happen to kind of hit a home run with your property management company and they could handle all that for you?
Yeah, I mean, he was really good at it. He was also a commercial broker. He had a lot of connections, but we've done a lot of micro renovations on all our properties. And You're right. Not all property managers are created equally, right? Mm-hmm. Some are stronger than others, and you've got to give them oversight. You have to manage your managers. And as I got more experienced, and that property was where I probably made one of my most costly mistakes, because in syndications, when you're looking at properties to renovate, you go, oh, well, I can just do it $5,000 a door, no problem. But when you're in a 16 unit, I had underwritten about $5,000, $6,000 a door. The first one we rehabbed, I hit a whopping $12,000 on it. And I had to go back to my investor and say, man, I messed up big time. But those were the prices my property manager was giving me. So then I learned, and I had to go back and say, now, wait a minute. We need to get more quotes. We need to get more, let's not buy in this town, because we do buy in secondary and tertiary markets. Mm-hmm. We need to go to the big city, see if we can find somebody that will come out that will cost less. So it's truly a learning curve, but you've got to watch your managers and the way they spend and require them to get lots of quotes to find the price point that fits your budget, what you told your investors you could do it for.
One thing I always say about property managers is that property management company is only as good as the manager you have at that time. You might find that amazing property management company and they do everything right and you love them. Then that manager leaves for another job, as they do every 2 to 3 years, it seems. And then all of a sudden that management company is not the same management company it was before. And then you're in with a management company you never vetted because it's now ran totally different with a whole new staff. And when I was working with clients that would come into town, I'm always like, hey, split your portfolio up between two managers that you vet, vet multiple, but pick top two. In the second place one, give them one property at least, let them just manage it. And then you have a backup that you can go to because it's always going to happen when that manager leaves.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And we buy properties that are usually 50 units and under. So we don't have any on-site management. We don't have people sitting out there. So it's a different way of, like you're saying, trying to manage them a bit. And when they do, they'll send you one manager, then they're gone, and here comes another one. And you're exactly right, Ted. You have got to stay on top of them. You have to make sure your business plan is being implemented by them.
You mentioned that the training that you initially went through in the multifamily piece, it was pretty heavily, it sounded like it was weighted mostly in syndicating. But it sounds like your first deal that you did was a JV, not a syndication.
Correct. It's partnership.
So is this more of a case of you not taking your parents' guidance and advice, and you're not taking your coach's mentor's advice and you're pivoting? Or
do as I say, not as I do, right? Yeah.
How'd you end up in a JV versus going out and doing a 506B or C syndication and raising all the money and all that?
My thing was just, Les Brown talks about putting yourself in a position where you can't retreat. And that's a position I'd put myself in, right? I'd quit my job. I was hungry. My kids were hungry and I needed to find something. So if it was 16 units, well, that's what it's going to be. Mm-hmm. And so once we got that funded, I was like, okay, that's my only small one. Now I'm going to go find the 100 unit. Now I'm going to go couldn't find them. So we went about another 16 unit. And then we found, and that education was for syndication. I kind of had to learn through just the boots on the ground. Mm-hmm. I learned my own education by taking what they teach, but I had to translate it over to these small properties. And that's where I learned.
Totally makes sense. And then you have basically one person to answer to from a partnership perspective on the JV, and you're not in bed with them for perpetuity. Generally, it's just a one-off deal. You see if you guys, are clicking as a partnership team, and you can work well together, and then maybe you do another one, and maybe you do another one. Right.
Yeah.
No, I love that. I just always find there's so many different ways to carve up a partnership and decide who's responsible for what. And are you going to do it for all deals, just this one, see how it goes? Like, that's the beauty of JVs. You're not all in with everything you have with one person. And then,
Exactly.
Life happens and people may decide they don't want to be in real estate anymore. Maybe they're moving. They don't want an asset that far away, whatever. Like life happens. So no, that's really cool. Here's what I really want to know. You mentioned that you were able to execute a refi and pull out some cash. The property that you originally bought still cash flowed even after doing the refi. It gave you, I think you said $170,000 ish. Is that about right?
Yep.
I guess, how do you pay the bills if you're getting started and you're like, hey, Cynthia, I want your coaching program. I want some mentorship. You go through it, you learn this. How do you actually pay for groceries and your day-to-day stuff when you're trying to operate and get off the ground as either a syndicator or somebody that wants to get into multifamily? As maybe it's a JV, maybe it's your own money, somehow. How do you eat?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's all those distributions monthly. Couple things. You got to underwrite it correctly. But what people don't get taught is that the profitability happens after you close. It's not always before it. It's what do you do afterwards that makes it profitable to keep those distributions up. And we pulled out that money, paid back the investor some of his money. But because this property has cash flowed, now, like what you love about JVs is that you can carve them out any way you want. So somebody brings money, gets X amount, someone who doesn't. So my partner and I, he brings money. I'm boots on ground. I'm asset management. That's what I do. I run them. We have our percentages that we put on each of our properties. And that's the percentage that I get. And that's what I live on. I take that percentage every month. And because it's cash flowing, that, on a 16 unit on average, we're splitting up between $6,000 and $7,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
let's just
money. That replaced, just that one deal replaced pretty much your income that you were making net from the ministry or from the church, right?
Exactly. Now, if your salary is $200,000 a year, you're going to need a few more properties, right? Yeah. But if you are in that place where who wouldn't want to have a couple $1,000s a month for just a few hours a week? And then you scale it, you do it again, you refi, you put that money into another one, or you sell and 1031 it. And then before you know it, you have stacked up and you're getting that $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 from multiple resources. And now you're making $10,000, $15,000 in passive income every month. Every month, life happens at apartment complexes. Some months are better than others. Oh, we had a water leak. Okay, so this month it's a little less. This month we had it great. Yeah.
Being a single mom with triplets and having kind of a fixed income with your ministry music teaching activity, you had to be really careful about what you spent money on a month-to-month basis. When you're stepping into, all of a sudden you've got a little bit of a windfall from a refinance and you've got some cash flow and you're making an asset management fee. So you have some cash flow coming in. But like you mentioned, there are oopsies that happen and things you can't plan for where, maybe a water heater goes out. Maybe, somebody does something, a lot of damage to a unit and you can't recover it. So you got to spend $5,000 just to get drywall and, flooring and all the clean out and all that stuff done. So did you try and make it a practice of setting aside the stuff that you didn't need? I guess maybe talk about that for a second. Did you try to maintain your same budget that you had when you were employed?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Even though when you kind of get that little windfall, especially when you were making what I was making, to get a check for $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 was like, that's more than I made in a year. I was super excited, but I couldn't tell myself that. And the goal was to keep it growing because it was scalable, right? Is to keep the budget the same and put that money away. So when the next deal came up, I had money. Because when things will go wrong, and I try to teach people when they are underwriting and they put that CapEx in there, they're like, yeah, but it's nothing's going to happen for a while. And I'm like, oh, it will. Trust me, when you least expect it, the water leak upstairs, going to flood the one downstairs. There's always going to be something. That make ready, like you said, costs more. They decided to let their kids draw on all the walls, and now you're going to have to go in there and do a full make ready.
Yep.
So you don't want to get too excited. It is still about budgeting, putting into savings, and if there's other ways to invest, this is an and world, right? You can put money into different things. It doesn't have to be this or that. Mm-hmm. So it's keeping that budget. I never wanted to get ahead of myself.
Cynthia, when you are looking at a potential deal, like what's your napkin underwriting look like?
I've actually have a little napkin underwriting program that I give to my students. And you basically we want to come up with how much money is going to be your down payment. What's your acquisition cost going to be? And you put in your numbers, your income expenses. And the goal is to at least in these days, get to a 6% cash on cash first year. We used to underwrite for like 10, 12% cash on cash first year, but those days are gone. Those days are so gone. So if we can get to a 6% that first year, then I know that we can dig into this property deeper and see if we can get up to 10 by year 2 or 3. So.
When you're looking at, so you started in, I think, 2018. Did I get that right?
2017, we went under contract. Yeah.
So now that you've got pretty much a full market cycle under your belt, with multifamily in particular, got hit really hard in 2022, 23, 24, and especially in Texas. I know not all areas are the same. I know Austin got really hammered with basically cap rates, really going up, and a lot of multifamily. There was a lot more units brought online that you mentioned earlier that you were looking a lot at secondary and tertiary markets. So not Austin proper. Maybe it's a suburb or like somewhere that's 30 minutes away from, a bigger city. Is that part of the reason why that you like those smaller assets that are in maybe a little bit smaller town? Do you find that's a success?
Absolutely. We love those secondary. When people say, oh, we're going to go to the emerging market, I'm like, we're going this way, so we love to go to the secondary. I mean, we're in a town of 3,500 people. Now, this is a 30 unit. I would never say buy an 80 unit in a town of 3,500 people. But in these smaller towns, you're going to be finding the B and C class properties when you're looking at this size. There's very few A's that are getting built that are 30 units, 20 units. But we love those markets. And you're right, Texas, it is funny. Texas is just one of the places we're in. We're in Mississippi and Arizona and Oklahoma. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, we like looking. The closest property is probably that one in Oklahoma. That's like 5.5 hours from me. Everything else is far away from me. But those smaller towns, I mean, yes, they get hit. And yes, you're not going to get those incredible rent increases like you're going to get in Dallas-Fort Worth. Because they were, in 2020, and right before COVID, they were marking those things up. Your renewals were $500 and $600 a month. Insane amount of rent increases. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get that in these secondary, tertiary markets, but you're going to get increases, and you can still make cash flow, and that's what it's all about: passive income, right?
Yeah, and I know I'm asking you a lot of detailed questions about this, but I just find this endlessly fascinating because personally, this is pretty much how I got started, but mine, instead of buying a commercial property from, a friend, from basically a contact that I made, I started with single family. So I started on the smaller side and then, transacted enough to where I had a little bit of money to put into multifamily. But all my first deals were, duplex, fourplex, and then kind of worked my way up to larger stuff. But I always liked.
He also started before I was born. I mean, it was
no, that's not true. This, anyway, so I'm vibing with your story. This is how I look at things too. But in the smaller towns, and I live in a town of about 3,500 people, so it's very similar. What you don't find there is much in the way of multifamily housing at all. Like there may be some duplexes that were built a long time ago, depending on when the town was populated originally. But you see a lot of stuff that's older. Maybe it's a conversion property. But there's very few, like even 30 units. Those are few and far between when you get into a town with less than, say, 10,000 people living in it. So people generally stay longer. They don't want to move as often because there just isn't as many housing options there.
It's their home. Yeah. It becomes their home.
But you mentioned, that there is a little bit of a point of resistance where how much you can actually raise the rents. comparatively, as opposed to say, DFW area or Austin or somewhere like that, or even, Omaha where we're at. There's a lot more competition, a lot more units that come online every year. So you got to kind of like, measure the capacity and the units being delivered and all that. But there are a lot of situations where you can really raise rent significantly to bring them to market, especially if you buy them from mom and pop owners, which leads me to my next question. How do you find your deals? You mentioned Mississippi and, and Oklahoma and Arizona and all these places. Like, how are you getting these? Like, what's your secret sauce?
Relationships. It's relationships. Okay. A lot of it's brokers. And you're going to find the newer brokers are the ones that are representing these smaller deals. These are not your big experienced brokers that have been doing this for 20 years. You're going to find the new brokers that are just cutting their teeth. They get the small deals. Go befriend them. Go find something in common with them. And the other one are property managers. Did y'all ever watch Bewitched back in the day?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Remember Gladys? Peeking behind,
Yeah, Gladys Kravitz.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, watching everybody, right? So that's property managers. They know where all the skeletons are buried. They know what investors are fighting. They know what deals are getting ready to be sold. They know who's not paying their rent and their mortgage. They know the ones that the banks are trying to take back. Property managers know it all. That's the secret sauce. Go meet the property managers and they will find you deals because they're all brokers. They're all brokers too. So they'll broker you a deal.
I liked what you said earlier about on your first deal, you basically got an intro to the bank president in a smaller town. And those are also really good people that know all the dirt, right? So they may have a non-performing property on their books or somebody, they kind of generally know what's going on. So I think, small town banks are great to work with for that reason, among many others.
We just closed on a 58 unit last week that we bought from the bank, because it had gone south and we built that relationship with this local bank, which is priceless. It's all relationships. It's just all relationships.
Okay, let's what if this. So what if I am wanting to follow in your footsteps and I want to go out and start building a multifamily portfolio? Let's say I want to skip over the commercial deal that you started with. Maybe I've done a few residential deals, like flipping, a few wholesaling. Maybe I have a couple of single family rentals. I want to do what you do, but I don't really have those relationships in place. Do you have a tried and true approach? Setting aside your personality, which is a great, it's a great entree into any, potential relationship, but let's leave that aside. Like, how do you go about if you're like, hey, you know what? I found a deal in Mississippi or I'm looking there. How do you do that when you don't live there?
First off, again, relationships, right? You got to build up that relationship with the broker or whoever you're getting that from. And then it's a team. This is a team business. And like you're saying, some people are more extroverted that are going to go find those and build those relationships. And other people are not as comfortable with that. So it is building a team. It is getting with people like myself that are experienced that can do that. But if I'm looking in Mississippi, it is about getting the information from them, as much knowing the right questions to ask from those brokers, finding out about the deal, finding out about the landscape. And now with AI and all the tools that we have, you can find out so much information just sitting in front of your computer. Now, eventually you're going to have to get boots on the ground. Eventually you're going to have to go do a walkthrough. You need to go and look at the property. And, brokers are almost requiring that now because there's so many people buying sight unseen, and then the deals were falling through. And brokers were getting burned on it. So now they're almost forcing investors to come out and take a look.
I can't tell you how many clients I've done video walkthroughs on properties that have never been to Omaha, let alone seen their properties.
Yeah.
I mean, it is extremely common, and especially since we have so much money coming in from Colorado, California, and the Upper East Coast. I mean, that money is just flowing here to buy properties. Like, oh yeah, I've never been there and never planned to come there. And just here's your FaceTime walkthrough.
Yeah.
Here's my numbers. Here's my sum. I mean,
eventually you got to put your boots on the ground. Eventually, you've got to go see it, because doing those walkthroughs is very eye opening. But having that mentorship, having somebody who's experienced is really. I wouldn't go alone. You don't want to go alone.
I do like what you said there. You had a really good tip hidden in your story about working with new brokers, and I really liked that when I was getting started as well. And you find that when you have a really kick-ass broker that's in a particular area, let's say it's Omaha or Fort Worth, and they're well known for transacting deals, and they have a lot going on. They're really busy. They're all they're the ones with the Bluetooth annoying headset on all the time, walking around like Ted.
Blue suit, brown shoes. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you're dealing with somebody like that, they have a slice of time to give to you. And they've got 100 other investors that they've closed deals with before, that they're going to get all their first, communications about a new property. But if you go with a newer broker, somebody that doesn't have, a large book of business already, they're going to work hard for you. Typically, they're going to try to unearth deals that you're never going to get from, a broker that's, I have a client that's ready to list a property. They're going to work harder for you. So I do like that approach as well. And the same thing with small town banks or smaller banking, smaller community banks. Like, they're hungry for loans. That's the lifeblood of a business. So if you can go in and say, hey, here's what I want to do. Guess what? You stick with me, and I'm going to put some really good performing loans on your books. And this is going to, you know what I mean? You don't have to put it that way, but that's exactly what happens. That's why small town banks love real estate investors, and people that they're going to keep getting repeat business from. So it's some great tips in there. Yeah.
One of our first brokers, and he and I first met, and I just found him online, right? I just gotten started, found him online. He had started a brokerage firm with his brother. And we said, let's go to lunch, because I was just getting into it. And I wasn't afraid to say I was new. I wasn't afraid to say, hey, I'm just getting started. This is what I want to do. We went and had lunch. He told me about this car he had, and I'm sorry, I'm not a car guy, a girl. he told me about this car that he had back in high school. It's a green, like, I don't know if it was a Pontiac. It was something. It was like one of those really cool cars, though. And so I went out after our lunch, and I found a shirt with a picture of that car on it. And I sent it to him. And I said, thank you so much for lunch. It was really great. Look forward to doing something with you. Look forward to doing business with you. We didn't do anything for probably a year. But do you think he remembered me? Absolutely. So when he got a deal, he ended up going and working for Marcus Millichap. He found a deal. It was 23 units. Called me. We bought that deal. And now we've done a couple, and he's become a really great friend. So it's just about relationships.
That is such a great tip. And, he probably recognized it as somewhat of a little bit of a bribe, but the fact that you're so, personable and relatable to, nobody does that. And nobody sends handwritten thank you notes anymore. I was taught that originally, or I learned to do that originally. I was really good at it, and I've really gotten away from it. But I think it's such a great reminder. We had a guest on last week, a well-known, respected real estate, just all around great guy, Van Dieb. We had him on last week, and he mentioned in his podcast that he would actually send Christmas cards to people that he never met and be like, Merry Christmas from the from the Dieb family, and he'd send them to like politicians, news anchors, just he would find out who the important people are, and he would send those. And then if he was ever going to a public type of an interaction where those people might be there, he could walk up and be like, hey, I'm Van Dieb. I sent you a Christmas card or whatever. And they're going to remember that. I mean, you get typically at Christmas people that and like and trust, but just some rando sending it to you, I'd be like, they have the right address? But you'll remember the picture. Yeah. I love that. I love that.
It's all relationships. It's just everything about this business is relationships.
Mm-hmm. And becoming memorable.
Right. Yeah. And I'm the mother of multifamily, right? Because I have triplet boys, and I've always just been known as the triplet mom. And I knew that was my identity. And I thought, I'm just going to stay with this. This is where I need to go with this, because they were the catalyst. They were my reason. They're my why. And everybody needs to know, what is your why? I hear people that are like, I'm just coming into multifamily because I want to make money. I'm like, that's not a great why. It's a why, but you've got to love it. You've got to want to be in partnership with your tenants, because it's not just about you and your investors. You're providing a home for your people, for your tenants, for people that are working hard and wanting a safe, clean place to live. You are providing that for them. It's important. It is something we shouldn't take lightly.
Well, man, I'm so pumped after listening to all of your growth and everything that you've gone through and kind of the evolution of starting, from an accidental commercial strip mall into, really focusing on JV partnerships and building a multifamily empire. But surely you have something along the way that didn't go according to plan. Ted and I have a section that we call
Failing Forward.
Hey, she's a music instructor, by the way, or an ex-music instructor. I don't know how she's going to judge us.
I mean, yeah, we.
I want to hear you sing again. No.
No. You get one take. That's it.
Maybe we individually do it, and then you can tell us which one sounds better.
I love that. I love
don't
that.
like it.
Who's going first?
You're overridden. Yeah. So do you have anything in your 9 years of doing this that you totally whiffed on, or you just ran into an unexpected set of problems that just really dealt you a tough hand?
Yeah, there's a lot of failures in the business, right? And I think I hear from so many people that one of their biggest fears on why they don't do this is because they're afraid to fail. And I'm like, look, you're going to fail. It's just going to happen. Just like overshooting my CapEx. And, we have one property that I swear it follows all our underwriting and it's just jinxed. Every time we turn around, it's a water leak, it's this, it's a chiller, it's that. There's a learning in every one of those little failures. I think for me, looking back on these last 9 years, I don't know if it's a failure, but it is something, it's the mindset piece with my kids. When, it's not about real estate, but I think I unintentionally passed on to them messages over those years when it was paycheck to paycheck to paycheck. That get an education. I found my parents' voice in my head. Get an education. Get a stable job. Don't rock the boat. Don't question too much. Don't leave a job that's good to you. Be loyal to that company. And yes, all things, save money. And I think I preached that so hard. And they watched me do that in the church, right? But then an expanded mind can't contract. And now I'm living a different life. And I go back and it's not regret, but it is, I think, a parental failure on my part that now we're teaching different. Now I'm having different conversations with them.
Yeah.
Now I'm teaching them to think out of the box, to build a business, you don't have to go work for somebody else. There's ways to make passive income. There's a million ways to make money out of real estate and other things. So those conversations have changed. And I love this quote that says, our kids won't inherit our portfolio. They will inherit our patterns. And I thought, man, well, I taught them patterns that now were failing forward. And now I've learned, and I see my growth and my change to reteach them about money and those messages about money that we always hear and get taught ourselves. I want to change that with them. That's my parental kind of slip up. So now we're having different conversations, and I'm encouraging them to live a life. And now that they've been home this summer, they've been watching me. They're like, man, Mom, you're killing it. This is so cool. You're doing these, coaching things and webinars, and you're out and doing booths and talking to these RIAs, and
you're on the Kash and Dash Show.
I'm on the Kash and Dash Show. I told them, I'm like, I'm going to be on a podcast. It's so cool. Well, I have to say, I went on the National RIA cruise last January. My first time to be on that cruise, and I was able to speak. I got to speak, and my son Jacob was with me. And I remember sitting down front, and I was like, okay, I just need you to take some pictures for social media. Like, that's your job. And Jacob is sort of he's a lot like me. So it's kind of like, yeah, Mom, I could probably help you be better. He's always kind of watched with a little bit of, I got done, and he just stood up, and it was just tears in his eyes, and gave me the biggest hug. And it's like, Mom, I didn't know you could speak. I didn't know you could do this. I'm so proud of you. And I thought, we're changing patterns. Your kids watch you. They watch you through your successes. They watch you through your failures. And they watch you when you grow. And I think from that message, now I see him growing. So that's probably my failing forward.
Can I connect my teenagers to your son and have him talk about this? Because I haven't received any of that yet. But that is super cool. And I would say, kind of getting back to your commercial real estate for dummies comment. I think this is why anybody that's in real estate or like, self-development, a lot of people go back to the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book. Mm-hmm. And they call it the Purple Bible, hearkening to your ministry background. And they latch on to that because it's a story about you have a rich dad and a poor dad. And the difference is the traditional, you get an education, you get a job, you work for an employer versus kind of making your own path. And that's why I think people really resonate with that, is because maybe it's not their own parents, but they know people and folks that adopt those lifestyle choices because of the education and the examples that their parents set. So I think it starts at home. It is really hard to guide teenagers a lot of times on where you think is best for them, because they're going to make their own choice and maybe, zig when you say zag, or vice versa.
I think I'm failing because at our RIA last night, my kids are, as I'm speaking, my kids are jumping in the corner trying to disrupt my attention and doing jumping jacks in the door behind everybody. And I'm like, and then I called them out. I'm like, I'm sorry, guys, I can't concentrate because my kids are being jackasses there in the corner. I didn't say jackasses, but yeah.
They're young though, right? Aren't your kids young?
Yeah, 9 and 12.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they're jumping up and trying to get my attention, jumping jacking in the windows. And I'm like, oh my goodness.
Oh, that's funny.
You've been proud of Skylar though. She did a lemonade stand outside of the RIA event.
Did she?
Yep. And she's like,
last night?
Yeah, she said $1 drinks and one free refill.
Wow.
Okay. And where did she learn that entrepreneur thinking, Dad? Right?
Yeah, well, we're always pushing. She's like, I need to make some money. And because she spends all her money on squishies.
Oh, yeah. I've been through that. It'll pass.
See, she's watching you.
Yeah, Carson was running the front door, and that pays his phone bill, and Skylar was doing lemonade stands. So gotta keep him busy.
All right. Well, Cynthia, we've got a final set of questions here in a section that we call the OT with Owen and Ted.
You didn't sing that. That was terrible.
Really bad.
At all.
It's not how it goes. I just did it to mess with it.
I told him I cannot work like this. This is our contract.
These conditions.
Yes. The OT with Owen and Ted. And the first question I'm going to serve over to Ted because he's sandbagging me. Go ahead.
Cynthia, when you look at your life in whole and all the accomplishments you've done, I truly think that each one of us has a superpower. And what would you feel that your superpower is that separates you from most people?
My superpower is raising people up. Is lifting them up to believe in themselves when maybe they don't. And it's been that way in church ministry, in my coaching, with just mentoring other students, people that aren't even in my program, and in real estate. It's lifting people up because I think we all put limiting beliefs on ourselves. And I want people to break through those to see their true potential, whether it's a guitar player that thinks that he can't play that song, a choir, a tenant, a partner. I want to believe in people that you can be the best person that you want to be, that we all want to be that better person, that more. And it's just needing somebody to believe in you, needing a cheerleader to cheer you on. I guess my superpower is I'm a cheerleader. Don't ask me to do a backflip or anything. That's not going to happen. I can't get off the ground. But I can cheer you. I can raise you up and believe in you. I can see in you what you can't always see in yourself.
That hasn't been mentioned yet.
No, that's it. That is a great shout out to your
first.
Yeah. Okay, so life as a book. When it's all said and done, you've written all the chapters. What do you think the title of your life book would be? This is Ted's question. Or what chapter do you think you're in your life right now?
I hope I'm in only chapter like 10 of 100 chapters. I hope I have a lot left to write. Silliness would be like, I'm bad at giving up. That would be the name of my book. But I have been massaging, like I want to write a book called like Mother Unmasked, going from gaining strength out of chaos. My life has had a lot of challenges, especially when the boys, they were born 3 months early. They were very, very sick. We were told 2 of them would never make it. We've been on death's door a lot over the last, 22 years of their life. And my Jacob, shouldn't even go down this road because I will never get through it. So my Jacob, He had an anaphylactic reaction to nuts when in 2017. Now, this is a year I'm getting ready to close on my first 16 door.
Yeah.
We were supposed to close in December. December 17th, he had an anaphylactic reaction. And we went to the closest hospital. They worked on him for 2 hours. Didn't even speak to me. I was just in the room. And they came over and said, as you can see, this is not going well. You need to say your goodbyes because he's not going to make it. And they said the only hope we have is down at the children's hospital. They have a ventilator that might help him because this one's not working. But there was a storm, so Care Flight couldn't come in. There was a wreck on the highway, so we couldn't get down there. But an ambulance and an angel named Valinda came in, and they started airbagging him, and they got him from oxygen sats down in the 40s, got him up to the 70s, and said, we've got him. They put him on the ambulance, got him down there. It is like God parted the Red Sea. No accident, no rain. And what would have been a 25-minute trip took us 12 minutes. He went down, he was in a medically induced coma for over a week. And they just kept telling us they weren't sure if he was going to make it. He ended up surviving. And I could have gotten out of that deal. Nobody would have questioned me. They would have been like, we totally understand why you're backing out of this deal. You need to be with your family. Family first, right? But there was something about it that I didn't stay in it because I was super strong. I stayed in it because I knew multifamily could bring me the life that I wanted of financial freedom, freedom of time, freedom to be with my kids. And it allowed me to do that. And I knew that with Jacob, it was going to be a very, very long recovery. So we put an extension on it till January and ended up closing on that property. And that 16 unit has changed my life. Okay.
Man.
Yeah. This you think that was emotional, and this next question is going to keep you going right there, I think.
Dead.
Okay. So it's an unfortunate day. You have passed away.
Yeah.
What legacy do you hope to leave behind for your family, for your followers, for everybody? And who's going to come up and speak on your behalf, and what do you hope they say?
Oh my goodness. So my funeral, balloons, margarita machine, it's already written out. It's already written. I just want you to celebrate. I want you to celebrate me, and that she never gave up. And she was told she would be a failure, and she wasn't. She never gave up, and she always raised people up. She believed in people when they didn't believe in themselves. And I hope my kids will come talk. I hope my husband comes and talks, which I know he will. He has been my biggest cheerleader. He sees in me what I don't always see in myself.
Well, he kind of indirectly sourced your first deal too. So you got to, right?
No.
Oh, the different guy. Okay. So you said boyfriend.
Oh yeah. The commercial property. Yeah. He was my boyfriend. Yeah. He's one.
Yeah, you got to take care of your
out of that deal. He wasn't even part of it. Is that wrong? Can we rewind?
No, that's going in. Okay, last question for you. This is an easy one. So, what are you excited about right now? You have a coaching program. You just closed on a 58 unit. That's exciting and probably stressful. What's going on in current state, and how can people find out more about you?
Just closed on 58. I'm getting ready to close on a 70 unit next month, or I guess that's this month, in a couple of weeks. I'm excited to be speaking to quite a few RIAs. I'm headed to Nashville next week, and then I'm going to Missouri, and then I'm going to Arizona, and I'm going to be at the National RIA. So that's really going great. So I get to just teach and educate more. I love teaching. And then my coaching program is going great. So you can find more about that at Ignite like fire, igniterewealth.com. I do master classes quite a bit. We're doing a big master class this summer. I have my wealth underwriter. I'm writing a new underwriting program. So many of the underwriting programs that are out there are all Excel based, Google Sheets based. I have a whole website one coming out that's web based. It's going to be amazing. It's so amazing. So many great things happening. And I have such wonderful students that are wanting deals, and we're connecting them. And so life is great. Life is great. And I would love to have people, I'd love to be mentoring other new students, helping guide them to a life that they can have.
Well, we will have John put that in the show notes for you with the links.
And I believe your Instagram handle is at the Cynthia Trammell, no relation to Alan. Right? That's how they find you on Instagram?
Yeah, everything's at Cynthia Trammell.
Okay.
At awesome. Cynthia Trammell. YouTube, Instagram, Facebook is Ignite Your Wealth. And yeah.
And Cynthia, it's been a great voyage hearing everything from your past to the church to getting into commercial, stepping into multifamily, your coaching programs, your kids. And I mean, we've gone from laughing to tears. I mean, it's been a roller coaster, but it's been a great story. And I can't wait to talk to you here in another year or two and have you and see where you're at from there. Like, your growth is going exponentially right now, and I think it's only going to continue for you. So congratulations on that. And what a great story. Thank you for sharing it.
Thank you, Ted.
But if you guys would love to hear more about Cynthia, definitely check out our notes and find all of her show links and her website. She'd love to share that with you and talk to you, I'm sure. And then from there, we'll let Owen Dashner sign us off.
On behalf of Dennis Bertrand and Ted Kaasch and the absent Aiden Bear, you've been listening to Cynthia, the mother of multifamily and triplets, Trammell.
Sign off.